Um, Sometimes when we're challenged by life, unexpected events, or even deep-seated fears, it's important to turn to the wise ones of our world for inspiration. And I know that over the years, I've quoted our founder, Ernest Holmes, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Emma Curtis Hopkins, Gandhi, Thoreau, and yet sometimes I think it's good to have a whole new perspective. Hence the title of my talk, What Would Pooh Do? I'm waiting for Pooh. Some people said, why didn't you dress up as Pooh? And I tell you, I just don't look good in orange, and he looks much cuter in it. So this talk is inspired by the Tao of Pooh, and this book is also based on the Tao Te Ching from writings from Lao Tzu. And it's ancient wisdom that's so applicable today in our busy, hurried lives than perhaps at any other time. Now, in both books, they refer to something known as the uncarved block. And what the uncarved block really represents is that things in their original simplicity have a natural power of their own. Power that is easily spoiled when changed or altered. And so there's great potential in something that is yet to be created. Because we can make this block anything we choose. And we can make it into a boat, a statue, a bowl, even a trophy. It has all this unlocked potential. We also have that same innocence, that same uncarved block inside of us. We were born with it. It's inherent to our being. And so it's important to discover or rediscover that simple childlike wisdom, which is why I hope you'll participate with us today, because you'll get that in tune with that joy that we carry with us. We sometimes just suppress. On page 151 of the Tao Te Pooh, it says, "Become the all-seeing child. Their minds have been emptied of the countless, minute somethings of small learning, and filled with the great no thing, the way of the universe." To attain knowledge, add things every day. To attain wisdom, remove things every day. How many of you feel like you're just forcing that knowledge in the closet and trying to keep everything under control, and yet in reality, it's this busyness that distracts us from our inner being? So what can you remove in your life? Are there material things that clutter up your world so that you don't have space to stretch and move and be and breathe? I used to just shove everything under my bed when I was growing up. And then when we moved, I discovered that I truly had a monster under my bed. So all these things just block us because we often get into this hoarding mentality that is almost like this addiction to filling up spaces in our lives that can't be filled with material things. Not only can physical clutter keep us stuck, but what about all that emotional clutter? Are there opinions and judgments and assumptions that are blocking your view? Are you getting so caught up in how you think others should believe or behave that you can't see these incredible expressions of God right in front of you? So what thoughts can you let go of in life? What is blocking that perspective? Sometimes it's blocked by fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of letting go of how we think things should be, and fear of what we don't understand. Now, in the 100-acre wood, they have something called heffalumps. Now, heffalumps haven't been seen or captured, But just like our own irrational fears, all the creatures in the 100-acre wood are convinced that they exist. And you can project everything onto a heffalump and blame the heffalump for everything as well. For no one could refute it, just like our own fears, because it's based on our fear-based thinking. It sucks all the honey out of your pot or the peace from your mind. Recently, I heard someone say, "Why pray when you can worry?" And I got in touch with the fact that when we worry, we project all our fears, all that we don't want, on something. It's affirming the worst possibilities. It's seeing the uncarved block as just a pile of sawdust. So, what are the heffalumps in your world? Are they more internal, or do they exist out there? Do you project judgments and fears onto groups of people and other cultures? Do you project them on ways of being that are different from you? Not so long ago, people feared. Actually, I've had to update that because since the beginning of North America, we've basically feared every immigrant group that came here, even the Native Americans. We fear what people might be saying when we don't understand their language. We fear other cultures or religions when we don't understand what they might be, or we don't understand what they might be doing. My last name is Carson because when my in-laws came here at the turn of the century, they had names from Czechoslovakia, and they were discriminated upon when they came over, and they changed it to the most American name that they could find so they would not be harassed. Over time, facts have revealed that most people have blended in beautifully with the qualities of our country, making it truly a great and wonderful country. In our book of the month, A World Without Fear, John Jones discusses fears built up over time. We can master them or become the victims of them. So by monitoring our emotions throughout the day, we can start to recognize and release these fears that if we hold on to, can only make us sick. They might have served a purpose in our past to get us quickly out of a situation, but now they just hold us back. Now, I've struggled to think of how to respond to a lot of the hate crimes that have occurred in the last few days. And one thing that I know for sure, that what we don't like about ourselves, we often project onto and get mad at in others. Anyone who appears to be different from us can be the target of our pain. And then it becomes this chain of pain that's passed down over time. We have a global vision in this teaching. In fact, we have it framed right out in the foyer. I invite you to read it because it takes these principles that we believe in and articulates them in a very clear way. The us versus them mentality really doesn't work when we live on a round, interconnected planet. So it's kind of like chopping off your foot because you think it might be a little stinky. Now, I'm going to pull in another reference from our teaching here, Ernest Holmes, because he wrote about getting along with others. He said, this quote, "This can be done in one and only one way, by seeing right through all this camouflage to the eternal spirit back of each one of us. The one mind in which we all live and move and have our being. We are all made of the same stuff. When we unify in love with life, we talk in a universal language with which we can speak to prince or pauper." End of quote. So one way to begin to heal and accept all beings for the gift they have to offer, though we might not understand it, is if we begin to accept and align with our own inner being. Rumi said, there is a field of right doing and wrongdoing. I messed that one up. Out between the field of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I will meet you there. A fly can't bird, but a bird can fly. Somewhat confusing at first, but have you ever had one of those times where you've kind of beat up on yourself for something that you couldn't accomplish or couldn't figure out? I know I had a mantra for a while. Oh, I'm so stupid. I couldn't believe that I did that or that I couldn't do that. Anybody else relate to just that self-degradation when you can't do something? But when we recognize that we all serve a unique purpose with our uniqueness, then we can become a gift to the world. So don't try and get rid of those qualities that can come back around to help you. Quote from the Tao of Pooh, "It is useless to you if you want to make it into something else. Everything has its own place and function." If we judged a snake and a bird by the same standards, one of them would be an utter failure in life. Now, some of you might recognize this guy, Tigger. He's always happy, he's always bouncing, but he could be totally annoying to the creatures of the 100-acre wood, especially Rabbit, because one day he accidentally bounced Eeyore right into the stream. So Rabbit had an idea. He was going to take Tigger way off into the woods and lose him, where he would become a sad, sorry tiger and never want to bounce again. I know, very sad. So he did this. He took him way off into the woods and left him there. Well, on the way back, Rabbit got lost. He started wandering around and he couldn't find for the life of him how to get out. Well, eventually, he saw Tigger bouncing high above the mist, and he ran to Tigger with his arms outstretched. Tigger was the only one who could save Rabbit. Rabbit was rescued by the same qualities that he wanted to destroy. So we all have inherent gifts that are ours to share, but we first must let go of the need to be understood or even approved by others. That's a big challenge. Think about it. The ugly duckling stopped feeling ugly when he realized he was a swan. From the Tao of Pooh. So comparing ourselves to others can only lead to jealousy and hurt that need not exist if we recognize the following. We cannot see all the details of another person's life and why they need to be as they are or why they have evolved as they are. We can only express that which we came to offer in whatever human or non-human form we may be in. Now, I used to hate being tall. I could never find pants long enough, and all the boys were too short. It wasn't until I realized that I could see at concerts. And I could reach the top shelf where my parents hid a lot of stuff. So I began to appreciate this quality that I despised and that I always slouched because of. Lao Tzu says, "The bad can be raw material for the good." I want to share with you 2 quick stories on this evidence. In 1927, a 32-year-old man stood on the edge of the lake in Chicago's Lincoln Park, planning to drop beneath the dark waters and drown. His daughter had died, his company had gone bankrupt, his reputation had been ruined, and he was becoming an alcoholic. Looking into the lake, he asked himself what one small man in his position could possibly do. Then an answer came to him. He was now free to take risk, to initiate action on his own, and by doing so, to help other people. He returned home and committed himself to the work that he believed the universe wanted him to do, instead of what he had been taught to do. Think about that. Things that you've been taught over time and you've suppressed what you wanted. He watched the laws of the natural world and altered his own living patterns accordingly, eventually changing his life completely. Those laws were to inspire and support him in his greatest achievements, but without his believing and taking a chance, his contributions would never be realized, and no one would have come to respect and know the name Buckminster Fuller, the inventor of the geodesic dome. One more. In 1854, a boy was withdrawn from school in Port Huron, Michigan, for causing trouble. He had been there for 3 months. That was to be the extent of his formal education. He later worked as a laboratory assistant. The job ended when he blew up the laboratory. I hate it when that happens. His employer picked him up and threw him out into the dust, saying that he would never amount to anything. But he had a plan. He wasn't going to let a little problem or two stop him. He wanted to learn the mechanical applications of natural laws. He eventually became the foremost inventor in American history, with over 1,300 domestic and foreign patents in his name, synonymous with the problem-solving genius. Anyone want to take a guess? Very good, Thomas Edison. So once again, letting go of the opinions and judgments of others. We are all perfect in our natural state. And yet, oftentimes we fail to bring out those gifts. Anyway, if you're not familiar with the geodesic dome, next slide. Mistakes are imagined by man, the creature with the overloaded brain, by separating himself from the supporting network of natural laws, by interfering and trying too hard. Have you ever gotten yourself into some awkward situation because you assumed way too much, then made up a story about that didn't exist at all, but it came from all your worries? Sometimes we just need to do nothing. We will now all do nothing. You ready? So just as Pooh would say, just going along, listening to all the things you can't hear and not bothering. I'd like to have us all just take a deep breath in right now. And as you exhale, let your eyes gently close. I want you to try now and listen to all the things you can't hear. Just notice the sounds without being attached. Notice your thoughts without judgment. Listen deeply to your heart pulsing blood throughout your entire body. Listen to your lungs filling up with air and breathing life to every fiber of your being. And now take another deep breath and let your eyes open this time. On page 47 of the Tao, he says, the empty mind can find things because it can see what is right in front of it. What do you see right in front of you? Maybe it's the back of somebody's head or some creature's head. Ever lose something and you're in a frantic search to find it? You're running around, and the longer it takes to find it, the more confused and angry and frustrated you get. We almost become blind by our panicky thoughts. One time I was running late for work and I was madly rushing around trying to get dressed, but I couldn't find my bra anywhere. I failed to notice I had already put it on. So in times, we need to slow down and be mindful of what's in front of us. From the Wu Way, or Pooh Way, as it's called, like water flowing without doing, flowing without doing, causing, or making. No going against the nature of things. When we are present to what is right in front of us, we know the right moves to take to get on the right path. A number of years ago, I went to Thailand for the first time, and I had been up all night on an overnight flight, and I was exhausted. Well, I had to catch another flight going north, so I'm running around trying to find my gate. Finally, I see it in the distance, and I'm quickly trying to get to it, and I see one of those sidewalk moving things, and I thought, great, I'll just take this. Well, within a second of stepping forward, I failed to notice all the blinking, flashing lights, or hear the sirens and the loud thing that says, "Do not enter, wrong way." I almost did a face plant in front of all these curious Thai people who were wondering why the crazy American was trying to go on the wrong way of the face plant mover. That's what I call it now. I failed to notice what was right in front of me. The Pooh way says things happen in the right way at the right time when you don't try and force it. So in tune with the way things work, no matter what we are thinking, it all eventually comes out. So think back to a time that maybe you tried to force a relationship, or get a job that just wasn't happening, or maybe live in a place that just wasn't working out. Ultimately, something more in tune with your nature appeared. It had to. That's the law. You might have even said, "Oh, now I understand. That had to happen in order for that to happen." You couldn't have even made it better if you tried. Because the masters in life know, this is a quote from the book, "The masters of life know the way, for they listen to the voice within them, the voice of wisdom and simplicity, the voice that reasons beyond cleverness, knows beyond knowledge. That voice is not just the power and property of a few, but has been given to everyone." And that's what I want to remind you of. You all have that inherent power to begin to decide and create. When we are in that state of simplicity, we make those perfect right decisions. Who says, "I always get to where I'm going by walking away from where I've been"? When we don't try and justify and explain why we're here, how we got here, let me tell you my sad story, and go deep into detail, then we can more freely move on in life. When you plug Siri in and tell her where you want to go but you're lost, she doesn't say, "Well, how'd you get there?" You go back to where you came from and you figure out that next path, or I'm not going to tell you the next step. It's sometimes as simple as that. We need to listen to that simple voice that beckons you onward, just like that uncarved block speaks to you from within. So I leave you with the invitation to truly go forward and to trust that that inner urge is showing you the next right step or the way. The universe is guiding you, whether you are bouncing, flying, or just sitting and not bothering about anything at all. Flow with your life, for that is what Pooh would do. And remember, she was looking down. Crystal, please, next slide. Everything is better with a smackerel of honey. You might find a few honey sticks next door as well, because that sweetness of life is always available if we're in touch with it. So remember, by loving what is inside, you can begin to live and love what is outside. Thank you, and namaste. Wow. Thank you. I invite Rod once